soldier, when you see 8,000 climbing up on you, don't see them as men, just see them as enemies of the king, you know.
Greetings from the Eccentric Man. This is a video overview of the roll call event that was held at the weekend. It was part of the British Historical Games Society, and it was a two-day event, 1,250 points, and it was hosted and run by Gary and Colin Betts. They've been doing a lot of these tournaments up and down the country, so thank you very much to them for running it. Over the 2 days, and we had 5 games, 3 on the Saturday and 2 on the Sunday. And yeah, enjoyed myself. We'll go through this video. I'll go through each game that I played, the opponents and their armies, and then I've got some videos on the armies that were taken and a video of the tables that were laid, and they were really good tables and really nice terrain. Each table that you played on, you went to, and it had a scenario all ready for that table. So that was a nice thought. So it was fairly easy for us when we were setting up. What was it? It was 5 points for a win, 3 for a draw, nothing for a loss, and there was a secondary objective on the table that was worth 1 point. So that was what it was, and it was an early morning start on the Saturday, an 8:15 kickoff. So let's get down to having a look at how the weekend went. I should really say before we start that 3 of us went along that normally play, and that was Colin Robinson with his Japanese and Rob LeMay with a Stalingrad Russian list. You can find them on some of the previous video battle reports that I've done. So we went as a small team. Unfortunately, Rob had to drop out after the first day, which was a bit of a shame, but Colin and myself managed through to the end. So sit back and listen up and watch. So you'll all be familiar with my army. Well, those who follow my channel will, but for those who don't, and this is your first venture into it, let's go through what I have. So for my tank, I've got 2 tank platoons. They're the DAC Africa Corps, and my first platoon is a Panzer II regular, a Panzer III regular, and a motorcycle with a machine gun sidecar, which acts as an armoured car. I've then got I've got here infantry squad, 8 men, with a light machine gun and the NCO as a submachine gun. I then have a Pioneer squad, which has a submachine gun, well, NCO with a submachine gun, and all the rest have submachine guns except for a man with a flamethrower, and there's 8 in that unit. And they come in the SDK FZ7, which is the half track there. I find that's really useful for coming in over rough terrain. And it's a veteran to help me get my Pioneers on. And then I've got a truck for the Here unit. My second platoon comes with a Kubelwagen, which has a MMG, and that makes it into an armoured car, but that's my command vehicle. I then have the Marder 1 Lorraine Schlepper, which comes with a heavy howitzer. It's a dinky little model. You can see it there on the right hand side. Small, but very powerful, with a heavy howitzer on it. And then I've got a Horch 1A field car Flak 38, which is a light auto cannon, which comes into your tank platoon. So soft-skinned, quite a lot of soft skin there. I've then got 2 here infantry sections, which are both 8 men regulars with light machine guns, and the NCO has a submachine gun. The trucks that I take are inexperienced, just to save points. A bit risky, but hopefully the scenario I can either bring them on first wave or they're deployed on the table. And then I've got a medium mortar to round it all off, and they're regular. So that was my army for the day. The twin tank platoon DAC. I quite like using the DAC. They're my favourite army. I've probably got more of these than anything else. A very flexible list. I tried to keep it within the theme of it, so don't take any snipers because they weren't in the Africa Corps theatre. And it's round the 1942, mid-42 period, North Africa. So that's my army that I was taking, and we'll see how it fares throughout the 2 days. So thanks very much, and let's get on with the games. My first game was against Paul Walker from warhq.com. You may remember that I had a grudge match with him at a Cams Bridge Too Far, and Paul took the honours on that day. Here's the army that he's running. You can see it's a British Royal Marine Commando, and he's got his 2 twin anti-aircraft Crusaders, 2 Greyhounds, Commandos, a 25-pounder, and a Universal Carrier. So that was his. I think it's much really. Adding in a Greyhound takes him up to 1250, and perhaps another bit of infantry. But that was his army that he had. A good game we had. It was fought over a really nice desert terrain with a train running through the middle of it. Everybody talks about sourcing out the terrain and working out what it is before you start. Excuse me. And we went through everything on the board, saying this is hardcover, this you can see through, this you can't, this what does. And what did we forget? The train. And it came up in the sort of middle of the game as to what was the terrain, if you get what I mean. I had played it in my head as impassable. Paul had played it that it was passable for troops going through the train. So what we did, as you should do, if you've got anything like that, dice it off, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and we did, and it turned out that the train was impassable. So no hard feelings on anything on that way. It's just an easy way, a nice way of just sorting it out if you've come across one of those little things that is difficult to go either way without giving a benefit to each person. So that was it. So let's have a little look at the board and see how it looked. Point defence was the scenario that was for this table, and it ended up with me being the defender on this side of the table looking up. The objectives were the ruins on this far right corner, the well in the middle, and on the far left is another bunch of ruins. As I say, the train through the centre, it ended up in the latter part of the game as being impassable, so separating the tables off. They changed the scenario here to make it a little bit more balanced from the book, and the attacker has to secretly write down before troops are deployed what objective they are going to go for, and if they get that objective, they win. So it's not a matter of having to capture 2 of 3. It's a win for the attacker if they get the one that they've put down as their secret mission, which does cause the defender some trouble because you've got to try and defend 3, and Paul had selected his and spent the game trying to do my head in with movements of his troops to try and not let me guess which side his outflanking 4 units of Commandos and Universal Carrier were going to come in from. He put most of his armour on the middle of the board and then sent 1 Crusader and 2 Commando units down to the right, his right and my left, to take the far ruins objective. And then he had the other Crusader and the 2 Greyhounds hovering around in the middle. So I wasn't sure whether he was going to go for this left hand side of my board or the middle one or even the right one. And it was like that throughout the whole game. I had to commit my Pioneer unit, which was my reserve firefighting force, to take out the Crusader because my Panzer II, which was on this side, and another here regiment wasn't going to survive the Crusader and those Commandos coming down. So I had to pop the Pioneers out, and fortunately they demolished the actual Crusader there. I thought this was a nice view of my mortar team and my command for my tank platoon, the old Kubelwagen, sitting just behind the train in its camouflage. So, turn 5. Yes, and the Commandos came out on the right-hand side of my table. And he had the Greyhound down, he had the Universal Carrier, and 3 units of Commandos. And I had to rush everything that I could to try and keep control of the ruins. He unfortunately missed killing my here regiment, here section, by 1 man, the NCO, who despite the pins and being on his own, did actually pass his test. He was only regular, but he did pass his test, which was a real bonus to me, because that allowed me to get some other units in place. With this scenario, if you have somebody in there, you have captured it. And obviously I had people there right from the beginning. To actually capture it back for Paul, he would have had to have killed all the units that were within 3 inches of it. and being quite a big objective, it does make it quite hard. I think the objectives should have been a little bit smaller on here. But I managed to get a win, but I didn't get the secondary objective. Paul got that. That was a bit more in the middle of the table. I was on defence trying to protect the main game. So yeah, first game, a win to me, and revenge for my loss to Paul. So we're 1-1 now. So we're going to have to look at the next game that we go to and see if we can decide who is the winner out of the two of us. So a good game to start us off. Game 2 was against Simon Chandler. He had come with a small group of people who were playing together in I think it was probably one of their first or second tournaments. And he was rocking a Royal Marine Commando list as well. So that was 2 that I played in the first 2 games. You can see he's got 2 Universal Carriers, a couple of Commando squads, and a couple of sections of British infantry, and a Cromwell over there, and an armoured car. So there was quite a few of these kicking about during the day. So that was what he was using, and let's move on into the game. So game 2 was Manhunt. That was going to be a really interesting scenario if I got to be the defender, as I took 2 tank platoons, and my commanders were either a Kubelwagen or a Panzer II. But fate has it, the roll was won by Simon, and he went as the defender in this scenario. Manhunt, for information, is you've got to capture the opponent's, the defender's main officer, in hand-to-hand to capture him. If you shoot him, it's a draw. And that's an interesting scenario. And also, from turn 2, you get confused fight. So you can bring a unit on from any edge. That stops the opponent bringing troops on from that edge, but they can bring it on from any other edge. If you then bring your unit on from a different edge, your opponent can bring it on the board where they couldn't before. If you think that's confusing, read the rule book and it'll explain all. So that's what it was. I did have an opportunity, beginning of turn 2, to actually kill the British officer. Couldn't capture him on turn 2, but I could have killed him. But it was going to be what a waste of a game, having to then just play through because you've already decided on the outcome. So I decided not to. So the rest of the game was a bit cat and mouse, trying to get hold of the British officer, who was in a 5-man team. So it was going to be 5-man commando team, so he was going to be quite a hard one to get rid of and capture in hand-to-hand. Fairly lucky with some of my artillery side and my tanks. Neutralised his armour and his armoured car. However, we get along to about game turn 5, and I'd taken out Simon's 3 main big blocks of infantry by that time. And with that, he decided to run his commander back across. You can see the little hump in the middle, the little hill. He had run his lieutenant, no, it was actually a captain, so that was quite a high leadership as well. That worked well, having the +3 for leadership benefit. But he ran away behind the hill. Unfortunately, I was lucky enough to have a Panzer II quite close by. If I hadn't, I would not have got hold of him. He would have escaped and Simon would have run. So I had to pop the Panzer II over the hill, take a shot with the light auto cannon, and I was able to wipe out the commando's captain's group. Got me a draw. I didn't get a secondary objective, but I took the draw. As I said, could have had it at turn 2, but that would have been really boring. So we did have a good game up until turn 5, where I thought, nah, got to get the draw out of this, because otherwise it was looking at a loss. And that was it. So killed the captain. Third game up was James Hamilton. And this confused me right at the beginning, because he presented 2 boxes with an army in each and said, which one would you want to play? I was a bit confused. But he okayed it with the tournament organiser that he took 2 units, 2 armies, and offered the opponent which one would you like to play. Not sure I'm very happy with that overall, really. I mean, I did lose this game, but that's got nothing to do with it. Everybody says that, but it wasn't actually. I lost the game because of the way I played it. Yeah, so I wasn't so sure about that, being able to take 2 armies and get the opponent to choose which one they wanted to play. The choices that I had was a Royal Marine Commando with, I think it was a Cromwell and an armoured car and something else. Yeah, and some truck with a gun on it and commandos. Or to go for a generic sort of British one here, which had the 3 Shermans and the infantry. One of the Shermans was a 150, one was Firefly, is it? And one is a normal Sherman. And then smallish infantry teams to do that. So I went for this one. I was a bit gung-ho, I must admit. The scenario was Envelopment, and I won to be the attacker, and decided I would try and get my units off the board, where perhaps I should have really thought about it and tried just to get units into my opponent's deployment zone to get the smaller number of points. I think for this one you get 3 points for any unit that you get off the board. You get 2 for anything in the deployment zone, the 12-inch zone, and then 1 point for killing anything. The defender gets 2 points for any of the units that they can kill of the attacker. So that's how it went. That was the scoring system of it, and we can go into the game and have a look, and just have a quick look at how gung-ho I was. So quite a nice table with a V1 rocket launcher in the middle of it, and roads that were running through, but you couldn't go straight down the road to get off in one turn. So I decided to run 2 of my vehicles down the road. One was the KDF, which could run 36 inches, and the one truck, which could run 48. But I ran him along as far as we could go. James, in his responses, with his little infantry unit, and he's not got very many there, and it wasn't submachine guns on these units, needed a 6 to hit the truck, 6 to penetrate the soft skins, and then a roll of 4 or 5 to kill it. And he did. First one, rolled a 6, followed by a 6, followed by a 5, I think it was, and that took out the Pioneer SKDF-7. They bundled out and took 6 inches more towards the table edge. The truck wasn't so lucky. That also got 6, followed by a 6, followed by a 4 this time that blew it up. So that was 2 trucks dead and 2 infantry units sort of stranded a little bit out in the open. Probably was my fault for going a bit gung-ho as I did. But tried to get other things off the board. Didn't get go as well as I'd hoped it would do, and took a loss. Didn't get a secondary objective, and James mopped up my units that were remaining on the board. I got probably 4 or 5 units off the board, but not enough to get the win out of it. He killed mostly all of mine that was on the board. Well, killed everything else that was on the board. So I went to James there with his British. So, day 2, and my next opponent was Phil Clark. I'd seen his army earlier during the day and taken a picture of it, and then I saw him posting up on Bolt Action on the Facebook page, and said I was looking forward to meeting him on the next day because of the army and seeing what he's got there. And it was a really nice set up army. And what I did is I did a quick video of it just to go through the troops that he... My opponent for today is going to be Phil Clark this morning, and this is his American winter board. It's very nicely done. As you can see, he's got some guys in foxholes, well, in the dugouts, I suppose. Yep, so they're looking nice. A bit tricky with the colour and the contrast on a snowboard, but yep, it's got a nice Sherman, whatever it is. I wish I knew what tanks were. Half track, little Jeep with a heavy machine gun. Mortar team. Yep. Little light anti-tank. So looks a nice little army. Nicely done. Nicely presented. So into game 4, and I did feel a little bit sorry for Phil in the first turn. As you can see, the mission is hold until relieved, and the little dot in the middle is the centre point, and you have to be controlling that at the end of the game, and no other enemy forces within 3 inches. So I had deployed down first. I deployed down a unit of here infantry. Here infantry and a little Kubel wagon down there, I think. And then he deployed his infantry on. He could have put a bit more infantry on if he wanted to, but I'm not quite sure he was fully aware of that. And I didn't realise what he hadn't put down. So he put down 2 main infantry units, as you can see there. And in his first move, he had moved the 1 unit in the middle there of 10 men right up to the hedge. I brought on my Lorraine Schlepp with the 150 mil gun. I had gone through all the army before and did say that I did have the heavy howitzer there. I brought him on. He was behind the hill. I moved, needed a 5, and I got a 5. He did decide not to go down, and unfortunately for him, it's +4 penetration, and it killed the 10 men. I rolled well enough to kill them all. And you know, some of the times in games when things don't go quite right for people, and it's very unusual that it has a big effect on the game, but that one did, I think. He only had 3 big infantry units, and that really sort of stuffed him, sadly. He then sort of brought on the half track into the centre. You can see to the right of the hill there was that little lane. He brought a half track up there in the following turn 3, I think it was, or turn 4, and the Lorraine Schlepp shot it again. It needed a 4 though this time around, and it took it out as well. He had a medium machine gun team in it, and they died from the hits that were inflicted upon them. So it was a really hard game for him, and against the Afrika Korps with the small number of troops that he had, really. One bright spot in the game for Phil was this picture here, and this was his second lieutenant, who charged my 7-man here regular unit. He was veteran for his officer. I couldn't put any casualties on them when they charged, and then once they moved into hand-to-hand, Phil's officer did 1 wound to my here section, and my here section of 7 with 1 tough fighter failed to do any wounds back. And they were dead and popped. So yeah, heroic last stand by the officer, and took out the here team. Sadly, not enough. I had taken out quite a lot of his units, and there was no way that he was going to be able to shift me from the objective. So a win to me, and I was also able to get the second objective in this one. Great guy, Phil. We had a good chat about the armies and what can be run in them, and he was a real good sport with it. So, game 4 over, and a little bit more respectable by getting the win, and then the TO decided to change it from 3 games on the Saturday down to 5, because we were running a little bit late, so we moved into game 5, which was going to be the last one. So, game 5 was against James Faulkner, another guy much like ourselves, Colin and me and Rob, who were doing Warhammer Fantasy, but decided to give it up when Games Workshop knifed everyone in the back and went to the Age of Sigmar. I've played Age of Sigmar, but I don't like it particularly. So we were looking around, and Bolt Action caught our eye, and we're very pleased it did, because we love the game mechanisms within it, and also the people that we meet are, can I say it, nicer to a large degree. Might be the game, might be the system, might be the people in the age, but there we are. But it was a good change for us, I think. So he was rocking another British Army, so I did play quite a lot of British Armies over the day. And this was another one with a Cromwell tank, an armoured car. The half-track is actually a truck. I think that was a medium anti-tank gun that he's got there. A machine gun team, a mortar team, some biggish infantry blocks, and a small paratroop section. So that was what he was rocking up with on the game, and I was very lucky with preparatory bombardments from the British. Other than the first game with Paul, who killed my mortar team on the first preparatory bombardment, I was really lucky with all the bombardments that came in from the British and their free observer. Free observer in this one. This game was just purely meeting engagement is to kill as many of the opponent as you can. So the British, if you don't know, they're for preparatory bombardment, they roll 2 dice and they choose the best of those 2. Normal free artillery observer doesn't get that, but obviously it is 100 points to everyone else, so quite a little plus to them in the games. So here it was. You can see that just about to see the secondary objective. If you go from this house at the bottom up towards the little road and the main road that runs through, you will see that there is a square, and that is some supplies, and that was a secondary objective. So for me, the key thing for this day was to get as many of the secondary objectives as I could, because I missed them yesterday, and take out as many of his units that I could in this game. So it did come down to, on occasions, me sacrificing 1 unit to get 2, and that was always a ploy. If I could take out 2 with one of mine, we were more or less equal on dice, so I was going to be up and ahead. So that was what my theory was. I outflanked my pioneers in the SKDF-7 on the right to try and make sure I could get that secondary objective, and I brought on the Panzer II also on right flank to give me some support coming on first to see what was there. And overall it worked quite well. Did sacrifice a couple of things. Sadly, the Piat team popped out of the wood and took my motorcycle combination. You can see it there just by the house and the hill, and he did snot to them quite well with the Piat team, which was a bit of a shame. Overall, I took out his Cromwell very early on, which did really put a spanner in his works, because I think that was quite a linchpin of his army. Couldn't kill his armoured car. I'd able to loads of shots on it with my mortar, which ranged in very quickly, but I just couldn't kill it. However, I managed to get a good win out of this, killed more of his troops than mine, and I got the secondary objective. So that left me with 3 wins, a draw, a loss, and 3 objectives. So let's get on to some of the armies that were brought along. This is a Free French army brought along by a Frenchman, and this did in fact win the best painted from the judges who were the TOs, Gary and Colin. Yeah, very nicely done. I didn't get any close-up pictures of it other than this, which was a bit of a shame, but it is a very nice army. Somebody was very brave and brought along a King Tiger for his list, and somebody brought along 2 88s in one army, and there were a number of tank platoons of the DAC theme, other than my own, and yeah, some very nice standards of painting throughout. So I'll just let you enjoy some of the armies that they took pictures of.
So we've got 2 platoons. Basically, one's headed up with a SDK 263. He leads 2 Panzer 3 Alfs G, a Panzer 1, and a Panzer Jaeger 1. The second platoon consists of Command Vehicle 221, 3 Kuba wagons, an 8 Rad, 2 trucks with 2 sets of squads. each with 9 men, LMG and NCO with an SMG.
All right, thank you. And for the camera, who you are?
Name's Chris Marland.
Chris Marlin. A very nice army here for the competition. About 5 to 8, and we've turned up at roll call, British Historical Game Society, and just looking at the tables that are out and about. I know Gary and Colin put a picture up on the interwebs last night on Facebook. Nice little one there. People starting to arrive. Oh, nice little train. Oh, a bit of snow. Oh dear, looks like there's been an accident. Sad state of affairs.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's doodled off the edge. Wow, that's a nice one. Quite a lot of close terrain, as you can see. Back to the desert. And always the ubiquitous ruins. So, yeah, nice. Breakfast is starting to be prepared. Yeah, you're on film. Smile for the camera.
Do you want a sultry pose, mate?
Oh, yeah, sultry, that's good. So, I'd like to say that I took first place. I didn't. I scored 21 points overall for the 2 days, which was, well, it wasn't too bad. But I think the loss on day one for my gung-ho truck charge cost me dearly. However, my friend Colin Robinson, who you've seen his Japanese army feature quite a lot on my battle reports, I've managed to talk him into getting a new one, and he's painting up a French army at the moment. So something new for us to look at and have a game with. So yeah, he took 4 wins out of the 2 days and 1 draw, which put him up onto 23 points, I believe. He didn't manage to get any of the secondary objectives. His last game was against a guy called Bruce Hamilton, who was rocking up with Brandenburgers, the Eagle of Landed list, and they had a final game of sectors to get units into the opposing players' halves. Probably not the best game for Bruce in that one. So Colin did swamp all his infantry onto the opposite side of the board to get into the deployment zone, and he managed to get a win out of that game. They came down. They were playing on the top table. They were the 2 highest players. So Colin won that game, and in the awards ceremony they were tied. And Bruce, gentlemanly as he was, gave the title to Colin because he said they were on equal points, and Colin actually beat him in the last game. And to quote his words, he had a cheesy Brandenburger army. So yeah, kudos to Bruce, who was very good there to step down and give Colin, who beat him, the win. So well done there. So yeah, Colin picked up the title, which was really good. So I'm pleased that all the times that I've beaten him, he's learnt something from it. I think the honours is more to Colin than me, but I think we have learnt quite a lot over the last year, because we went to this tournament last year, took the same armies, so we've learnt a lot. I think I pushed my place up from 5th to 4th, so I was okay with that. This is Colin's winning army that you can see. He's got inexperienced bamboo pole men. He's got a couple of artillery pieces and a mortar. He's got a Horo, which is the heavy howitzer. He's got an Igo, which is a light howitzer tank. 2 of those little tankettes, which have heavy machine guns and medium machine guns, and some other infantry, some other inexperienced infantry. I think all his infantry is inexperienced, as what he was running up. So yeah, 4 games with wins and 1 draw gave Colin the title. So well done, Colin. Well deserved. And I look forward to taking on the French for a change. So, thanks very much for watching. I would recommend getting along to some of these tournaments and get yourself going if you can. I know there was as I say, there was a group of people. James was one, Phil was one, Simon was one who had started Bolt Action up, and they seem to be having fun. So we've had a good chat with those. So if you want to come along to tournaments, please do so. Come along to some of Gary's. I'm running a small tournament at Stevenage at the Lost Ark Games. Tickets are available from their web page. Have a look in there. It's called Shrapnel 2017. Love to see people there. I've got a Facebook page for Shrapnel 17. Have a look there. I've also got the Eccentric Man Battle Report page. You can join me there. Please do. It's great to have more people along. And obviously, if you like the video, give it a tick up, a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. If your friends you think might be interested in it, please get them to subscribe. The more the merrier. And I hope and try to reply to everyone as quick as possible if they've got questions or they want to put me right on rules decisions, which we always need to know. So, thank you very much for watching and look forward to seeing the next battle report and see what we're going to put up. So thanks very much. Bye.